Hey guys, this is Not Lammers of Invoked 101, and earlier I saw this video by Cimooooo. This is on his channel. This is the Does Yu-Gi-Oh! Need More Draw Power video, and in this video he actually goes through and talks about like attributal, like water, fire, those kinds of draw spells, and um, how those could be used. Um, you can see it's actually kind of changing because I was clicking at this thing, but I can actually click off this right now because we can go talk about the thing that I want to talk about, and that is more typing based draw spells. And we already have one of these cards in the game. Spellbook of Knowledge was my direct example to him in the comments, which is send to the graveyard either one spellcaster you control or other spellbook card from your hand or face up, draw two cards. You can only activate one per turn. So this card, of course, is part of the spellbook draw engine. You can actually see the two other cards I'm trying to talk about up there, but those aren't important yet. Um, if we had cards similar to these, like banish one fiend monster, actually that's basically a layer of darkness. Banish a fiend, draw two. You can only activate one. Um, Shuffle a warrior from the field into the deck, draw two. Something like that, where it does something to take away just a little bit of your advantage and to get two more cards. I think, and there are some typings that actually do have that. I believe there's a fish, sea serpent, an aqua card that does draws that's not Moray of Greed. I'm pretty sure. I forget. I'm pretty sure there's a few other ones, but of course, the ones that a lot of people know are the archetypal draw spells, and I don't see any issue with archetypal draw spells. I think they're fine. I think if every archetype had a draw spell, then like I think would be set up. But not every archetype needs a draw spell. Now, does it? But this is something like World Chalice. World Chalice doesn't really need a draw spell. Instead of a draw spell, it has a spell that puts World Chalice guys back into your hand, which is really good for that deck. So even if you were able to make all these attributal draw spells and stuff, Fire Fist usually searches out most of their cards. Like, so say if you one of the ones he kept mentioning was Fire. Fire always wants to Fire Fist usually puts its cards into its hands. Fire Fist always searches, and if you were able to destroy a card in your hand, that would make the Fire King cards too good. Those are the only or the Infernoids. The Infernoids would take so much advantage of that, which would make them unfair if you were to do a fire one. But those are the only three good fire decks ever, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. Volcanics were all right for a while, but they don't count right now. Dark already has a Lure of Darkness. I thought Light actually had a draw spell. I just thought it got like overlooked, but I think it was more of like a trap card thing. Um, but no, I'm honestly surprised Light does not have a draw card except for like Light Fairy. Um, which one of his things was like, oh, what if Trickstar had a draw card? And then he mentions cards from the sky, which needs light fairies, and I'm pretty sure the Trickstars are light fairies, so I don't understand his argument in that. But yeah, we can take a look at another card, which could have been the Warrior one. This is discarded Destiny Hero, draw two cards. Imagine if that was a discard a Warrior, draw two cards. That'd be insane. Some of these cards, I think it's a lot, but for Destiny Heroes, it was just a deck that hasn't done a lot. Trust me, I know. Um, it's kind of hard to think about. But there was a new card released recently that I'm kind of backing. I kind of think that this is a good way to put draw cards. I think this is a good way to meet in the middle ground of both typing and attributal field spells, not field spells, draw spells, and that is method draw spells. And what I mean by that is we'll take a look at this brand new card. This card was like just revealed. I think it's either in the structure deck or it's in like the Link Vrains box. It's in something like that, or it's in the Flames of Destruction. It's in some weird set like that. It's in a future set. But this is Pendulum Halt. And its effect is if you have 3 or more face-up pendulum monsters with different names in your extra deck, draw 2 cards. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot add cards from your deck to your hand. So it stops you from searching, doesn't stop you from special summoning, but it does kind of cripple the pendulum strategy to a degree. Also, by the way, pendulums didn't need this card at all. Let me just put it like, no, pendulums did not need any more power. You already gave them freaking heavy metal foe, unless you're going to hit Skullcrobat Joker to 1. Like, no. This pendulum support needs to stop. But anyway, this card is really interesting to look at because it uses more, it's more of a method type support card. And we saw an earlier version of this, which also makes me wonder why this card was even made in the first place, in the form of Pot of Riches. Pot of Riches is a very similar card where it takes, I think it's 3 or 5, I don't remember, face up pendulum monsters, shoves them back into your deck, and then you draw 2. So this does a very similar thing, except in a way it's not nearly as good. Cause what I mean, yes, granted, Pot of Riches prevents you from special summoning, aside from pendulum summoning, but I would rather recur some advantage back from my extra deck and draw 2 than not be able to search. So anyway, I don't know. I think this card doesn't need to exist anyway because of Pot of Riches, but whatever. But what if there was a card that said reveal 7 fusion monsters in your extra deck? Reveal 7 fusion monsters in your extra deck, draw 2 cards. But for the rest of the turn, you couldn't, like, I don't know, you couldn't normal summon. You had to, like, fuse after that point. I don't know. Something like that. Or, and like maybe for an X, like you could make these for all of them. Like you could be like, reveal, or if you have 3 or more Xyz monsters in your graveyard, draw 2 cards. But for the rest of the turn, you can't, special summon. Like literally, you could just replace where the monsters are, or like reveal from your extra deck 3 fusion monsters, 3 Xyz monsters, 3 synchro monsters, or you could be like send 3 synchro monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard, draw 2. You could easily make these for the other summoning methods, and I think that this is where the like quote unquote pot of greeds start to become really interesting, is in cards like Pendulum Halt. And I think that if you were to able to make every deck fair, you kind of got to tap into the extra deck to a degree. That's why Link Summoning that's why people were like outraged when Link Summoning came out, because it crippled the extra deck. It crippled everything for a short amount of time, and now Link Summoning's kind of like second nature for a lot of players. Point being, I don't think we need more draw power. I think we needed more things like Pendulum Halt, where it's more like more broad but slightly more restricting. I also find and while we're on the topic of draw cards, I'm just gonna flip it back to Destiny Draw. While we're on the topic of draw cards, the supposed Pot of Greed errata, where it doesn't let you special summon, kind of takes away from the original idea of Pot of Greed. What is wrong with my arm? Kind of takes away from the original idea of Pot of Greed, where it could just be thrown in anything and let you draw 2 cards. Pot of Desires is a very similar card where it banishes 10. And I think Pot of Greed should stay banned because we already have what Pot of Greed's errata would have been. It would have been Pot of Desires. So yeah, and I understand that Pot of Desires is a very divisive card, and I'll bring that up right now. Pot of Desires. So while this card is a very divisive card, you can't deny that it instantly is a free +1 without restrictions aside from the banishing, and you can only use 1. While Pendulum Halt, actually Pendulum Halt isn't once per turn, which that's stupid. Just activate 3 of them in a turn if you got them. And you can search this off Duelist Alliance too. This is, oh my god, I hate this card. I hate this card. I actually hate this card. This card is too good. Yeah, I think if we had more stuff like this to a degree, again, I actually already hate this card and it's not even out yet. Um, and you were able to give it something similar to Pot of Desire, I don't know. I feel that this, and a lot of people also feel that this is broken. That Spellbook of Knowledge isn't healthy for the game because the Spellbook engine isn't healthy because it just promotes people splashing in just a draw 2 engine. Personally, I think the engine is fine, but I also play and I main deck Invoke, so I think every engine is okay. Um, but I don't think there's really a big problem with the Spellbook of Knowledge engine. Um, People like to use back in the day. People like the Destiny engine. I think that if you could meet a middle ground with Pendulum Hall and Pot of Desires, that would be where the summoning methods is where the real draw cards are. I feel, because then you have free draws for you have free draws for decks that are using certain summoning mechanics. You could honestly put on like the fusion one if you only have fusion monsters in your extra deck. Like you could just say reveal 15 fusion monsters in your extra deck, draw 2 cards. I feel that that would be fair. You have to show your opponent your entire extra deck. You basically show off what you're playing at that point. Although, to be fair, no one's running a 15-card fusion deck, so probably it'd be more along the lines of like 7 or 8. And then with XCs, you got to make it higher. You got to make it high. And Links, you'd probably want to put it also at like 5. Like if you have 5 or more Link monsters in your extra deck. Something like that. Not exactly like that, but you understand what I'm saying. You need to make, if you're going to do new draw cards, make them similar to this card. I feel that this is the most fair, quote-unquote, generic draw card that's been put out so far, right next to Pot of Desires, because while I don't necessarily like this card, I can't deny that the cost that you need to pay and the fact that Ash Blossom is running around at 3 in every deck is pretty fair for the most part. But yeah, that's my take on, does Yu-Gi-Oh need more draw power? No, but I think final talk. No, Yu-Gi-Oh does not need more draw power. I think that where we're at right now is fine with draw power. I think that the draw power should have been set up for this, and that set up so that way there was more versatility to it, like more decks would be able to use it. And I think that where we're going so far with draw cards, like 3 of these, like these are probably the 3 newest draw cards in the game: Pot of Desires, Knowledge, and Pendulum Halt. I think that Pot of Desires, Pendulum Halt are pretty fair. And I mean, I guess you could look at Pendulum Halt and think, oh, well, Duelist Alliance can search that, and Spellbook of Secrets can search this, so this is technically just as fair as Pendulum Halt. In my opinion, it is. It is now. So yeah, I guess post in the comments below what you think the best draw card is, what you think about how future draw cards should be handled. I personally would love to see methods, like draw cards based off of the summoning methods like Pendulum Halt. And I guess that's it. Does Yu-Gi-Oh need more draw power? No, not at all. All right.